Welcome to the Food Professor Podcast, episode 35. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm the food professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
Well, in this episode, our special guest is Melanie Morrison, CEO and founder of BetterCart, an online grocery comparison engine that has some kind of voodoo that captures prices on the shelves. And I was looking at the site. I'm like, wow, this is really neat. You know, I was selecting a couple of my local stores and looking at price. It enables shoppers to compare prices and for our popular news segment, where are they? We have Fressy Bessie's Ice Lollies. So we're going to be trying these for our very special and very fun. Thanks everyone for the feedback for the trying stuff segment. 100% real fruit. So we'll be trying those.
Yeah. Well, it's in the fall, but you know, it would have been better in the summer, but it's a Canadian product and it seems like a really good product too. So
yeah. And you know, I'm making lunch out of lollies. So this is great.
Part of a reminder to every meal.
Part of a complete meal, exactly. And a reminder to the listeners to be sure and check out our YouTube site where we've got some bonus content, and of course we've got our trying stuff segment that you could watch on there. And we've got the whole episode, and then we've got it chopped up into different topics. So some shorter, some longer. So be sure and check out our YouTube site, the Food Professor Podcast. All right, well, let's get to it. You're disturbing things, my friend. The inflation nation.
Am I really?
You are making waves. This is, we certainly. I'm not sure if this is Buttergate. We call this Inflation Gate. I'm not sure it's that, but recently came out, and you and I talked a bit about this in the run up to it. But there's an article published in conjunction, I guess, or published by the Toronto Star that looked at what Stats Canada looks at in terms of reports in terms of food inflation and other data. So take us through it, take us through the issues, and let's get started.
Yeah, I mean, going back to Buttergate, I mean, the common denominator for all of these things is basically how the Canadian public is served, what we offer to the Canadian public. It's always been, I've always had a problem when I know consumers are the victims, essentially, and so that was the case with Buttergate, as far as I'm concerned. With the CPI, with the Consumer Price Index, I think we've talked about this before. I've always been concerned about the accuracy of the index, and in particular in relation to food inflation. I don't look at other components at all, not even e-commerce. I just look at food. And I've always felt that something was off. And I've actually testified before Senate a couple of times the last few years, telling senators that I've been concerned about the CPI. And actually, I did use some Nelson IQ data to show them how off the index was related to meat, produce, different products. And I mean, prices are so volatile these days, it's hard to keep track. And I think there's some of that going on with the CPI. But in recent months, I mean, we've been approached by this great organization called BetterCart and Melanie Morrison, who's joining us today, which is great. She blew me away. I mean, her model is amazing. They basically did mine millions and millions of data set every single week, which is 200 times more than Stats can. I mean, it's just a powerful tool that they have. So immediately when I saw what they were doing, I thought, ooh, this is very good. And so we started accumulating data and basically reported to the Canadian public a few months ago how different the CPI is to the data being mined by BetterCart. And
so right away you saw that there was a discrepancy in the data, and you're of course quite experienced at understanding, or at least trying to project, food inflation, because you put it in Canada's food price report each year, right? That's a long, big project with multiple universities. So it's not like this is a casual observation for you. I mean, you crunch through this data and try to forecast a year ahead, right?
Absolutely. So it's so we're actually working currently on our 12th edition for Canada's Food Price Report. We're actually meeting on Friday, all four universities. So that would be the University of Guelph, the University of Saskatchewan, and UBC as well. So we're getting together on Friday to forecast what's going to happen in 2022.
Right.
And we've in the past, at the very beginning, we actually were using the CPI StatsCan's data, but we immediately saw something was off, so we started to use, get this, the St. Louis Federal Reserve's data. That's right. We
What?
actually were using American data to forecast Canadian prices. So, and I've always wondered what's going on here. And this wonderful reporter, Paul Webster from the Toronto Star, worked on an article, investigated for about 2 months on this issue, was able to interview StatsCan only to really uh, pinpoint what exactly the problem was. And again, I actually do believe that StatsCan is filled with highly competent people, and they mean well. It's a great organization that has a great reputation.
Yep.
But data capture, I've always felt that was the problem. And in order to capture data properly, you need strong partnerships with industry. And so right now, StatsCan, for the first time, I think, has publicly acknowledged that they do face some challenges when collecting data. They deal with three grocers. We don't know who they are, but they are
Yeah.
dealing with three grocers. They're trying to sign on more, but they
Now
can't.
it makes sense that we don't know who they are, right? They're
Oh, absolutely.
one of their paramount things is confidentiality, or
Yep.
else for all the right reasons.
And
And it's
that's
interesting.
why understanding brands and banners and all that, and trying to correlate
Yeah.
inflation with what is actually going on, it's very difficult to do when you have
Yeah.
access to only 100,000 data sets a month, which may sound a lot, but it's very small when you carry thousands and thousands of products in a store. So we've always argued that the data set, the scope of the data set, needs to be broadened way more to get a better sense of what's actually happening with the food inflation rate here in Canada.
Well, and interestingly, Stats Canada, which actually put out this subsequent to what was it on the 18th, about how they do the food price index. It's an interesting
Yep.
read, basically defending what they do. Second largest, design with accordance standards and so forth and so on. And I echo my experience with the folks at Stats Canada has been uniformly, positive. We have a disagreement, and I have a disagreement with them on, again, the same thing: how they and what data they collect in the e-commerce side of the equation. To
Yeah,
their
your concern
defense,
is with e-commerce, eh?
yeah, because and the data they collect, I think, is genuinely accurate, but it only gives part of a picture. So it's a whole different discussion. They only basically capture what Canadians, are sold in Canada versus what they're buying, and they don't even include Amazon and Wayfair in e-commerce because they consider them warehouses. So it's a classification issue, not unlike what we're talking about here. What always interested me about how they figured out food prices is something we've talked about a couple of times: the whole shrinkflation issue,
Yes,
where
that's
how do
right.
you understand, if the price remains the same but the package size goes down? I'm like, I wonder how they factor that into their model, because that's just, I'm no data scientist, but that to me is off the top one of those obvious, how do they figure that out? um
Yeah,
so
no,
what did we
absolutely.
so what
It,
got
it,
this reporter from the Toronto Star intrigued in this? Was it something that you said, or something that it just kind of, this has been percolating along for a while? Like, what
well,
kicked that investigation off?
essentially, he saw our report on comparing the CPI data with BetterCart, and he called his editor, said, "Listen, I think he's on to something. Let's
Yeah.
write up, but let's investigate further." And that's what he did. And I thought he did a pretty fantastic job. He called all the grocers. He called processors as well. He also obviously had an interview with StatsCan, and they were very defensive. I mean, they basically claimed that our approach was unfair and inaccurate. But I don't understand why they would say that, because we actually were coming forward with some clear data,
Mm.
and our raw data is out there. I mean, basically, whereas StatsCan's raw data is not available. Even if you FOIPOP StatsCan, they're not going to tell you which brand they're looking at. They can't. They're not
Mm.
allowed to. And so that's really the problem here: transparency. And now I actually learned this morning that BetterCart has been asked to meet with StatsCan, which is really great news. I think StatsCan's approach has changed. Uh, for the last 5 years, they were very, very close and unwilling to talk, to exchange. Our goal is to help them. We want to help StatsCan because at the end of the day, the CPI influences everyone,
Everything.
everything.
And it influences tremendously business decisions, right? So
Of
from the
course,
retailer's perspective, they're going to look and say, how's inflation? Should I, am I worried about consumption? Anyway, it impacts a lot of stuff. And I agree. I've had great discussions with Stats Canada, full and fulsome discussions. We don't always come to an agreement. They don't always see it our way or my way, but they certainly have engaged in the discussion. And they did some amazing work on cannabis, by the way. Separate
they
thing with their
did.
Stats Cannabis. Very
They did.
innovative, right? And
But
that actually highlights an issue, right? Because they would say one of the issues, and they tried to resolve this, and maybe you can speak to it in the food. They tried to resolve it in e-commerce by saying, listen, our problem is people don't like filling out surveys, like people like businesses. So let's go to where the data is. I wonder if we can anonymously tap into credit card data and understand at the transaction level. And we thought, well, that's an interesting idea. Now they floated that balloon, and it was shot down very quickly by privacy concerns.
yeah,
They were gonna hash out the data. That would have given them a very much more fulsome look. So they were thinking about it, about different ways, and I think cheers to that, because that's what we were asking for as a retail industry. Is like, we do not have an indication in this country, like unlike the States, we have no idea basically what percentage of sales. We can build some models. Is that the same issue? Your challenge is, their challenge is who's filling out the data and providing them the data. Now, that's the one thing that jumped out at me about the article. Like, and it was this, I think it was, you said this oligopic nature. I thought that would be good. In other words, if, there's 5 grocers that account for most of the grocery sales in this country by percentage, right? What,
yeah.
80-70%, right? Wouldn't that mean you'd get pristine data if you were capturing the data or asking for the right data, because you're capturing so much? You don't have to go to 100 people. You can go to, by going to 3, don't you get like 60% of the data? Isn't that good?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, first of all, you need people to scan the data, and we both know what's going on with the labor market. That's one thing. I mean, you also have to think about grocers on a tight margin. I mean, that's extra. That's more responsibilities, and they don't really benefit commercially from reporting scan data. The USDA resolved that issue a long time ago. They basically created a consumer panel. They've actually hired, quote unquote, 120,000 households. Consumers are actually scanning the data for the USDA. You can look it up. You could go on their website, and they have the scanning of all the data. The raw data is done by households. So you kind of remove the industry, and you get to what people are seeing out there. Now,
Hmm.
of course, it's not necessarily error free, but at least you're not putting the onus on the industry to collect and scan all that data.
Well, I just thought, they've got the data in systems versus hand scanning, I would suspect, but I just thought the oligarchic nature of the industry was a bit of a red herring. In other words, the real issue is what data are you capturing, not that a small amount of people who own a large share of data are reporting it to you, because that should be good. In other words, if it was done, right, you've got a much bigger base of data. Isn't that
Yeah.
more like the case, right?
My big, as a scientist, my concern is the raw data. I'd love to see it. I mean, that's when you'll know,
Mm,
because like your e-commerce situation, the data they get is accurate, but it's a very small picture of what's actually is going on. And that's
yeah.
what we've been arguing with StatsCan all the time, like for 5 years. We do believe that
Mm.
they only capture a very minuscule part of what's actually is going on, which is why consumers are looking at the CPI, scratching their heads.
Yeah,
This
it's like,
is
wait a
not what
minute.
I'm. It doesn't make sense. The
Mm.
inflation rate is not at 2.7% or 3.9%. We're seeing major hikes in a grocery store.
Well, fascinating. So, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot going on under the surface. Stats Canada is certainly paying more attention now than
Well,
they had
I must
maybe
say
5 years
I'm
ago.
very, very pleased with what's going on. I mean, I must say I really commend StatsCan for reaching out to us. We're meeting with them in November. They'll be
It's
meeting
great.
with Melanie as well. I
Hmm.
suspect in November as well. And so their doors are open, which is really not something I saw before, to be honest. And I know that your experience, Michael, has somewhat been the same, I guess. It's been very difficult to have access to them,
Yeah, but with a little perseverance,
eh? Well,
eventually, you eventually a little
because
perseverance, and
you went to StatsCan, right?
that's right. That's right. I went to Tunney's pasture in Ottawa.
But when you go there, you immediately see how Dilbert came about. I mean, that's basically cubicle land, cubicle
Yeah.
kingdom.
Well, it's no surprise or it's no shock that my friends at Superette Retail Cannabis Store opened up a cannabis store just around the block. That's the location they picked as their first store. Boom, boom.
Boom, boom. But I mean, you went to StatsCan, and with your perseverance, you were able to meet with them. They came to us,
That's great.
which is great.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. All right. Well, let's go a little, not exactly, well, a little bit deeper, and let's talk to Melanie now. Let's get first. I want to understand. We're going to talk to her about her business and her business model, her great background, and maybe this. I'm very curious about how she gets and captures her data. So let's bring Melanie on from BetterCart. All right. Well, that was a great interview with Melanie. It's such a interesting value proposition. Love what she had to say. An academic in business.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. So, more news to come, right? Let's face it, more news to come, right?
I
All
think
right.
yeah, she'll be part of the CDL program. I'm expecting great things from BetterCard and from Melanie, and so yeah, it's great. I think what she's doing is incredibly valuable for both policy and business, and so yeah, I wish her all the best.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's cool things down a little bit. Uh, let's get to our trying stuff segment with Fressy Bessie,
Yes.
our ice lollies. So I'm just going to pause the camera here and let's get set up. All right, welcome to our trying stuff segment. Welcome to
Oh
trying
yeah.
stuff. All
Oh
right,
yeah.
now lots of great feedback. So thanks everybody, and for brands,
Yeah,
send that stuff along, and we'll
we're
try
getting
it.
a lot of requests now for
Yeah,
us to
it's
try
fun.
stuff, which is great. I mean, it's awesome, and we want to
It's
promote
fantastic.
new products as much as possible.
Well, and that's what I love about this segment. I mean, A, it's fun, and B, as you say, it's lunch because we often record around lunch. But part of why we started this entire podcast, actually, not just to talk about the industry and spend some time together, was to promote Canadian and great food and great new products to the market. So, all right,
Oh
so
yeah.
Fressy Bessie, and it comes. Here's Fressy Bessie. There's thing very generous. Yeah,
Oh
Fressy
yeah.
Bessie. We got a bunch of different kinds. We've got
Four different
organic
kinds.
organic mango. We have organic Canadian apples. We have tropical, and we have what's this one? We have organic mango and Quebec wild blueberries. This
Yeah,
is a brainchild of Jackie Quicko, based here. I met Jackie actually. She's on
that's
my
right.
doorstep, personally delivered. A wonderful person, and she told
That's
me about
awesome.
the life of an entrepreneur, knocking on a lot of grocers' doors, trying to get them to pay attention, and she's got a distinct value. So let's give it a try. So let's start first with this.
What
I'm gonna. What do you want to
which one
start?
are
I'm
you
gonna start with
trying
the
first?
mango.
The
I'm gonna try the
mango? Okay.
mango first. Yeah.
Right here, the mango.
So something that,
Voila.
just as we're trying it, it's interesting. 6 per box, and
Yeah,
quite actually small. So very very friendly kid sizes.
but there are 25 calories each.
Hmm. I mean, what I noticed when I opened the package, it just smells like fresh fruit, right? That's
Exactly.
the aroma I get. It smells like fresh fruit. I mean, this tastes like it's delicious. You could, if you look at what's in, 100% fruit, no sugar added or juice. I mean, it tastes natural, right? It does. It has a very specific
Absolutely.
taste.
Pure.
Mm-hmm.
certified organic. Though they're very small, and it's pretty striking because typically when you get lollipops in the store, they're much larger. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice bite size. Anyway. All right. I love the mango. I like
Yeah,
that a lot.
mango's great. That has my vote. What's next,
All right.
Michael?
Let's try apple.
Apple?
Organic Canadian apples. And there's a great video on her site, by the way, of how they're just pouring literally apples from a bin into and making them, because there's nothing added to it, right?
Yeah.
Tart, right? Not sweet. Tart like an apple.
I wonder what varieties use for this kind of apple. It's tarty. Maybe it's a Macintosh. It's probably a Macintosh, wouldn't you think?
I would think so, because it's got that tartness. I mean, what continues to ring true about these is their fresh fruit. I mean, they're tart. It's like a when when our kids were small, we would crush up fruit, and that's what they were eating, right? You know what's
so it
interesting?
Says organic Canadian apples, but it doesn't say what kind of apples. And I can tell you, in Nova Scotia, we take our apples very seriously. We're very specific with varieties, for sure. But this is good. I prefer the apple over the mango so far.
All right, well, let's try this. What's this one? Organic mango and Quebec wild blueberries from your La Belle Provence, from your home.
Le Québec, les bleus.
That's my favorite so far.
This is delicious stuff. My God.
Yeah, it's really good.
Every time I try one, I prefer that one. So this gets my vote as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like picking your favorite kid a little bit. They're all really good. So far, I think the blueberry, Quebec blueberry is my favorite. All right, last but not least.
The green one, the tropical one.
The green one, the tropical one.
It says tropical.
I mean, visually, what's in it?
So it's mango, organic spinach, and organic banana.
Spinach?
So, the green is because there's spinach in it.
Spinach.
And this is the most intriguing one, I think.
That's an adult flavor. I don't know how many kids are going to like this one.
So, full disclosure, my kids tried them on the weekend when we got them from Jackie, and they loved them, except for this one. Yeah, except for this one. And I must say, I haven't tried them until now, and it's not bad. It's not bad.
No, it's very good. But I just, in my mind, it's an adult flavor. I'm sure my kids would, but spinach, like Popeye, right? Good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what's interesting, Sylvain, is some of the feedback when we post on Twitter. And, on her package, and it was a bit of a back and forth on Twitter, and I thought it was interesting because of the predicament that some of these people are in. She basically chooses things to say that are not in it, right? On the packaging, right?
Exactly. Know this, know that.
Know this, know this, know this. And then, someone from the Twitter universe, I think it was a farmer, said, "Hey, why did you say gluten-free?" And she goes, "Well, it's gluten." And basically the discussion was, well, you're just basically fostering the belief that gluten's bad or whatever. And Jackie was like, well, we're free of everything. So it's like a no-win situation. We just picked it because people are looking for that, I guess,
Joanne MacArthur from Nourish really explained to us a while back that we're in the no era, know this, know that, and it's appealing for consumers just wanting natural. And I would say that the Fressy Bessie's actually just really gets nicely into that category, and it's great. I mean, seriously, if you're looking for a natural product and on a diet, and I can't believe it's 25 calories per popsicle. I mean, it's not bad. My goodness, like one popsicle you would buy at a store has probably over 200 calories, wouldn't it? So
I mean, I wouldn't do this, or at least I wouldn't tell you I would do this, but you could eat them by the box.
Exactly. So which one is your favorite, Michael?
I think the mango and the blueberries is my favorite.
Oh,
Yeah,
me too. Me
that's
too.
number one. Number two is the mango, the yellow one. Number three is the apple, but they're all kind of very close. And number four is our spinach and banana. I like
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
but
So I would
it's
say
kind of an adult
blueberry,
flavor.
apple, mango, and spinach. But spinach could actually be number one easily after 8 o'clock at night.
We see. I was thinking the opposite. I'm like, this is breakfast, right? This feels like breakfast. It's like wholesome to
Exactly.
have on a
You
hot
could.
day.
It's a cold frozen smoothie,
Yeah,
natural
it is
smoothie.
really. They're
Yeah.
very good. So congratulations to
Yeah.
Jackie at
Thank
Fressy
you very
Bessie. Go to
much,
their site.
Fressy Bessie. Thank you very much. Great
Thank you.
products.
And a reminder again to the folks that we're under no obligation at all.
Yeah.
People provide us this stuff. There's no compensation moving back and forth. This is just you and me trying stuff. So that was this week's trying stuff. Next week we got soup,
We
and
got soup.
we got soup. We got organic soup. Great backstory. We'll get to that next week. Let's wrap up. I got a couple of things to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Out of the lab, you did some research on food allergies. Speaking of natural foods,
Yeah.
anything jump out at you? What was it? 25% of Canadians were self-reporting that they had food allergies. Is that what jumped out at you, or anything
Yeah,
else?
we actually worked on this for this report. We actually worked with Food Allergy Canada. They were great, very knowledgeable group when it comes to allergies. And our goal was to actually come out with a study right on time for Halloween on allergies, and we wanted to know how many people do suffer from allergies, intolerances, explain what the uh, differences are between the two, and also we wanted to know if Canadians feel that products are actually properly labeled. And
Huh?
we
Mhm.
realized that labeling is still an issue in Canada when it comes to allergens. 35% of all recalled food products in Canada are due to allergens being mislabeled in
Right.
Canada.
Or
So it's
unreported products that are in it or something, right? Yeah.
so a huge problem. And so for Halloween, we certainly urge parents to be vigilant as much as possible,
Yep.
because sometimes you buy candies. Uh, Notices would be on the outer liner, but as you open up a bag of chocolate or whatever, you don't have any signs, you don't have any labels
Yeah.
showing the possible presence of allergens. And I know that that Food Allergy Canada is now working with Health Canada on new labels that could replace the may contain this, may contain that. You've seen them before, right, Michael?
May or
Uh,
may not, right? Yeah,
and
yeah.
and processors use that just to basically tell people, we run many lines under one roof. There's always a risk, and they're trying to refine that to make these labels less ambiguous for the public.
Interesting. So something we talked about a couple of months ago, the Newfoundland and Labrador tax on sugar sweetened beverages. What is it? 20
Yeah,
cents a liter.
yeah.
20 cents a liter. And I think I read it's going to raise $9 million. That comes into force. I'm a bit surprised they got it through. Like when I remember when he first talked about it.
I'm not.
A,
I'm not.
you're not, eh? I thought,
Nope.
no, it's it. So speak more to that, and speak more to you think if it'll have any impact or
How
will.
big is the beverage industry in Newfoundland?
Well, it sets a pretty interesting precedent in
Most
Canada,
of
though,
it,
doesn't
no,
it?
most of it is imported from Ontario and Quebec. Now, if you ask me, could this happen in Ontario? I would say probably not. Because so it's a tax on imported products, but that tax is charged to the consumer, which is really a dangerous precedent, because you're basically taxing food. And I've always been uncomfortable with that approach, frankly. And we've talked about this before. I mean, the UK decided to look upstream and focus on processors to encourage processors to change formula instead of taxing the consumer. Because once you tax a product, what else? What is next? What
Yeah.
are you going to tax other products? And it sets a really dangerous precedent. So Newfoundland is an easy. I think it's actually interesting for the rest of the country, because it will actually become a good case study. Uh,
Mm.
Mexico started a soda tax a long time ago, 6-7 years ago, and their obesity rate has gone up since, and their rate of type 2 diabetes has gone up as well. So
Mm.
what have they gained as a
Yeah,
result of the
yeah.
surtax? The evidence that it makes that a surtax will make a population healthier is absolutely weak still right now, and perhaps I mean, for the government of Newfoundland, I hope for them that they'll be able to raise revenues, because that's really what this is about, really, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the claim, you're right. The economists would call this a regressive tax, right? Because no matter what your income level, you're paying the tax.
That's
And
right.
B, I think they say, listen, we're going to raise $9 million and we'll put that into healthy food education. But as you say, in New York City, a lot of places have tried this, and I don't think they've put much of a dent in anything. So Weston sold their bakery division for $1.2
Oh
billion.
yeah.
Not entirely the bakery division, because I think they're one part of it hasn't yet to be sold, to FGF Brands. Do you know anything about the company that the buying company that bought the Weston bakery
I
assets?
I do, absolutely, and
Oh,
I visited the plant before. Oh yeah,
ah,
yeah, in North York. I must say, when I saw the news, I was really happy.
oh,
Yeah, FGF Brands is a really good organization. It's a family-run business, and I think I mean, it's a big chunk for them. I'll admit. I think their sales are, and this is just a guess, I think they're south of $1 billion right now. So
hmm,
buying George Weston is a huge chunk for them. Still, when you look at the leadership of so it's a family which immigrated in Canada many years ago, and I had the pleasure to have lunch with Sam, the founder, along with Paul Hayes, former vice president at Loblaws, and obviously that company was always close to Loblaws, and so acquiring George Weston makes sense. They actually understand Loblaws. They understand the business. They're
hmm,
already in the bread business, the bakery business. But my guess is that they're probably going to be revisiting their portfolio of products, and I already got a lot of questions about, collusion and bread price fixing, and let me
yeah,
tell you, I think it's because of that acquisition. I think it's less likely that Canada will experience a new sort of
yeah,
price fixing era anytime soon. But it's a great acquisition. It
yeah.
remains in Canada. It was acquired by a Canadian company as well, which is awesome. Yeah. What did you think about the
Oh,
news?
well, I knew it was in play because I actually owned a bit of George Weston stock, and suddenly, these things, they're supposed to be confidential, but somebody knew something because the stock started to pop, so I knew something was coming soon. Um, Clearly, it was in play. I thought it's a big bite for a small company, but they're probably doing like a vendor take back. There's probably some good financing in place.
Well, so you're a
You know,
shareholder of the holding company?
yeah, just to the Weston, yeah. So they at one point they carved the two of them out, right? So
Yeah.
Loblaws actually carved out Weston
Yeah.
as a precursor to the sale, and I
That's
had
right.
Loblaw stock, and I wound up with Weston stock, just
Oh,
a
is
small
that it?
little
Okay.
holding. Yeah,
Okay.
so it just
Well,
popped one day, and my broker said, "Hey, look, it just popped." I'm like, somebody knows something, these things, right?
yeah. Well, the Weston family is now committed to distribution, which is, I think,
Right.
their forte. And so the bakery business has become a difficult one. Margins are very low. It's very competitive, and frankly, when you look at bread prices over the last, I'd say, 5 years, they haven't moved a whole lot. We are expecting bakery prices to go up this year because of what's going on, like, everywhere. But in
Right.
the last 5 years, it's been really tough for them. So I'm not surprised that they're selling. And but I must say, they sold to a really good organization. So I'm very, very pleased.
Oh, fantastic.
Yep.
All right, our last thing is a bit quirky. Turns out there's not enough strawberries and strawberry Pop Tarts. Um, so someone is suing for $5 million damages that there's not enough strawberry, because actually there's more pear and apple. And by the way, have you ever looked on the label of plum sauce? There's no plums in plum sauce. It's all pumpkin. So anyway, it's kind of a quirky thing.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at the label, there's
Why
no
do they
plums.
call it pumpkin sauce?
I think pumpkin sauce would be less appetizing on the plate for your whatever. Your Zogolo's pub tenders, maybe, which I had pumpkin sauce. But actually, last
Yeah.
episode, I was looking at the label. I'm like, hey, there's no plums in this. Anyway, it's just interesting because we've seen this come before, whether it's Subways and it's not tuna or whether it's whatever. The food ingredients, and it's a really good story compared to Fressy Bessie. Fressy Bessie, it's apples crushed up and frozen. There's no shenanigans or no
It's pretty simple. I
composition.
mean,
It's pretty
oh yeah,
simple.
the list of ingredients is very, it's just a couple of items. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, here's a fun factoid. You know what the number one thing that grocery retailers do when they know there's a hurricane coming? Number one product sold in grocery stores in advance of bad weather? Pop-Tarts. Number one. Bottled water and Pop-Tarts. It's the perfect food. The whole family can eat it. You don't need to it's the perfect food to travel if you're escaping bad weather. Anyway, there's a little startling
It's
fact.
interesting and kind of sad at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, we'll keep it.
Last time I ate a Pop-Tart, to be honest. When do you eat Pop-Tarts still?
I haven't, but I used to love Pop-Tarts for that reason. I
Well,
take them
who
on
does?
the go.
I mean,
right?
it's kind of tasty,
Candy.
but it's not
It's
necessarily
candy.
good for
No,
your health.
I haven't in a while. But anyway, we won't keep a close eye on this story. But I thought it was kind of fun and quirky to bring up. All right, well,
Yeah.
Great episode, covered a lot of ground. And for all the folks out there, if you like what you heard, you can follow us if you're not already on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, your favorite podcast platform. Please rate and review, and be sure to recommend to a friend or colleague in the grocery, food service, or restaurant business. I'm Michael LeBlanc, producer and host of the all-new Conversations with Commerce Next podcast. Bunch of other stuff.
And I'm Sylvain Charlebois, the food professor.
Great to see you again, Sylvain, and everyone listening. Have a safe week. Talk to you again soon.
Take care.